So the GCSE and A-level exam season has started, so it's time to lock in. But what happens if you step into the exam hall, basically 100% confident that you're gonna smash the test, and then you come out basically on the verge of tears? Trust me, even if this hasn't happened before to you, dealing with this scenario is something crucial. It's one of those things that it's better for you to have and not use rather than need and not have. Why? Well, imagine you go into an exam, you drop a stinker, and you don't know how to deal with it. You think about it all day, if not all week, to the point where you can't even focus on revision for the next exam. That one bad exam will cause you to do bad on the next exam because you didn't revise for it, and so on. You've now set off a chain reaction that's going to destroy your chances of getting the top grades. That's why you need to be equipped with how to deal with a bad exam, just in case. So here's my 4-step protocol on dealing with a bad exam. Step 1, and this is going to apply whether you did well on the exam or you did badly, and that is under no circumstances should you compare answers after an exam. I can't tell you how many times I thought I smashed an exam, but then after it, I start comparing answers with friends and other people that I thought were smart. And by the end of it, all the questions that I thought I got right were actually wrong. That then sends me down a path of questioning every other answer I had. And that will only eat up my valuable time and energy, which I should be channeling into getting the top grades, into revising. And listen, I get it. It's very tempting. That amazing feeling you get when you're finally done with a hard exam makes you want to go around and ask everyone else how it went. But there's no point in doing it. I mean, let's think about it logically. What's the point of finding out whether the questions that we had were right or wrong? Let's say they were right. Sure, you might get a happy feeling for a little bit, but then that fades away. But then what if you find out that the answers you put were actually wrong? Then what? You can't go back and change the answers, can you? It's a high risk, low rewarding game. So just avoid comparing answers after the exam. There's no point to it. But sometimes, even when you don't compare answers, you just know when an exam goes bad. What would you do then? Well, step 2 of my bad exam protocol is when you know that an exam went bad, after that exam, when you go home and you sit down and whatever, you dedicate 5 minutes, and 5 minutes only, to asking why. Why did it go bad? I'd sit down and reflect over what just happened, and I'd ask myself, what went wrong? And was it in my control, or was it outside of my control? Was it a lack of knowledge, or was I just tired? If it was a lack of knowledge, I'd ask myself, is there any more preparation that I could have done for that exam? Because let's be honest, sometimes exam boards would just screw you over for no reason. Trust me, I know that especially well from physics A level. Sometimes we would just get the most cursed questions that no level of preparation could prepare you to do. If that's the case, then I'm not really going to blame myself. There's no point. I'll just say, alhamdulillah, it is what it is. But if there was something I could have done, maybe an exam paper that I skipped over, or a couple of practice questions that I didn't want to do, then I'll be honest with myself. Because at the end of the day, if I'm lying to myself, I'm only harming myself. And that leads me to step 3 of the bad exam protocol, which is to make changes. Now that I've sat down and reflected and figured out what went wrong, I would then ask myself, if it was in my control, how can I change my studying routine to cater for this so that it doesn't happen again in the next exam? If all of the things that went wrong were 100% outside of my control, which is, let's be honest, rarely the case, then there's not really anything I can do about it. But if there are some things, then I'll add them to my studying routine so I don't fall into the same mistake again the next time. You see, with the right protocol, you could take a bad exam and actually use it to improve. So without a protocol like this, like we talked about before, a bad exam could affect all your other exams negatively. But now we've used it with this protocol to improve on the next exams and actually turn it into a bit of a blessing. Now, step 4, and the final step of the bad exam protocol, once you've highlighted the changes that you need to make and implemented them in your studying routine, you forget about the bad exam and you just move on. You don't despair. It's now in the past. You've taken all of the benefit that you can from the situation. So why would you take some of the harm as well by letting it eat up your time and energy? You can't go back and reset the exam, so just forget about it. And let's be honest, that's easier said than done. You can't just forget something. But one of the things that's going to help you do that and overcome, the bad feeling of that exam, something I usually talk about, and that's to dramatize something. For example, I'll take a piece of paper, write down the exact code of the exam or whatever, the exact date I wrote in, whatever, and I'll just scrunch it up and throw it in the bin. Me dramatizing that to my brain will signal that, it's now in the past. There's no need to think about it anymore. Try that if you can't forget about the exam, and hopefully you can just fully move on. And also know that we can't really have everything. Not every exam can go our way. Sometimes we need to be humbled by a bad test so that it shapes our character. I actually do think that doing badly in some tests in school shapes our character. It's something that's good for us. As young people, we haven't really faced true rejection and failure. And so when eventually we do face true rejection or failure, in the workplace or university or whatever, how are we going to deal with it if we haven't had that character building experience from when we were young? Think of 2 people. Person A got humbled a couple of times, but they eventually got over it and they got decent grades. And person B, they aced all of their exams. Maybe person B does slightly better, gets, slightly better grades. But when true adversity, when a true failure hits both of them, who's going to deal with it better? Person A, who's had some setbacks, but they moved on, or person B, who's never experienced failure before? So if you're still thinking about that bad exam, take that into consideration and try to turn it into a blessing.